Hello all. In this video, basically, we are trying to do some analysis on the MBOSE result. In fact, for the last 5 years, and of course, the latest result from 2023. The point here is we need to see what are the reasons why we are getting low percentages, pass percentages, and there is a spatial variation also, and what are the factors. So we have also done some kind of root cause analysis. To improve anything, first we need to understand where we are going wrong. So that is why our team here in Diesel has worked out a very good presentation, and let us see what are the basic reasons why we are having such a low pass percentage. Because as compared to various other states, we are doing not very good, and this is one of the reasons why we want to take steps to slowly improve the pass percentage, because that will be the first step, and then there are other factors of improving the standards, mapping it to the other boards, and to CBSE, ICSE, etc., etc. So this is an analysis based on the SSLC, HSSLC results of this year and last 5 years. So let's go ahead and see the trend of the pass percentages. So the first thing is we need to understand the distribution of the schools which are there across the districts. So if you see that in East Hazils is predominantly having the maximum number is 564 as compared to other. The next big would be West Darovils, and then there are other districts. So total we have 1757 schools which are there, which participate in this SSLC exam across the state. So after this distribution of the districts over the schools, we need to see this, which is very concerning, that the unaffiliated schools which are there with the MBOSE, if you can see 62.3%, which is very, very high. And the reasons for this unaffiliation is that they have not met the various criteria given by MBOSE. So the standard application process or the process flow is that once a new school is started, initially before that a NOC is taken from the office of the Diesel, and then followed by opening permission. And after that everything is done, then MBOSE team also does some kind of inspection, and based on that the permission or affiliation is given. So now the benefit of affiliation is standardization, and also there are many other factors which go into it. So to improve the standards of school across Meghalaya, we want to see this number go up, and this is very, very concerning that 62% of the schools which are where the students are appearing for the SSLC exam are basically unaffiliated. So this is a major concern. We have already discussed this with MBOSE authorities, and we together at Diesel and MBOSE will work together to improve this unaffiliated schools, and hopefully before the next exam we'll have a better number. Now coming to the category wise distribution, so if you see the maximum is private unaided schools, which account for 631 schools, which makes 35.9% of the total schools appearing for SSLC. Then after that we have ad hoc schools, which are 23%. Then we have several categories. Now this is also another concern, that in Meghalaya there are so many different category of schools, and sometimes when we go into this government aided categories, it's very complicated. Like we have science grant, like we have Hindi grant, then there are RMSA schools, SSA schools, ad hoc, deficit pattern, and so on. So basically what our approach in the coming years will be to simplify this, and to have less number of categories and with common inputs, so that we can imagine a standardized version of these categorization, and hopefully it will improve, and it will be common standards and common facilities will be available across the state of Meghalaya. So right now from this, what is concerning is this unaffiliation, and hopefully I'm sure many of these schools who are having the facilities, because of some paperwork it could not be done, so we'll be fast tracking it, because I'm sure this cannot be the real figure, because many of these schools are having those basic amenities which are required. So hopefully in the next iteration of this analysis we will see more affiliated schools. Now going to the Next slide. Now, this is giving the gist of or the pattern of the pass percentage for the last 5 years. If you can see that more or less it's staying in the range of 50 to 60%. In fact, if you see the impact of during the COVID years, the 2021 or to some part of 22 on, so we can say that the COVID had a role to play. But in fact, when we discuss this with the school authorities and various stakeholders, now the impact of COVID will be visible in the post-COVID years, because those students who were there at that time in class 8, 9, or even class 6, 7, they had almost they did not go to school for 2 years, and the impact will be visible later when they come into class 10. So if you see now, there's a big dip this year in the pass percentage as compared to last year. So maybe this is one of the reasons, can be that because those are the batches they were there in those foundational years, and now when they give the SSLC exam, that may have an impact. But the concerning thing is it's on a decline, and over the last 5 years, basically it has stayed in that same range, and there is no improvement there. In affiliated also, the story is the same, and some minor improvement can be seen in the unaffiliated. But when we go deeper into the analysis, you will see over the distribution of categories. So this is basically has been the range in the last 5 years, which says that not much improvement is being done. And if you see here, this figure shows that 50% of the schools, basically they lie in which region. So more or less, you see they lie in that 90% to 40% region, and there are some variations ups and down, but essentially 50% is half of the schools are lying in this category. This basically y-axis is showing the pass percentage, and this is the distribution of the majority of the schools. Now this is the spatial variation, and we have color coded as you can see based on the pass percentage which is there. And as you can see in the Garo Hills region is below 40%, and within that also there are certain categories where Southwest and South Garo Hills and North Garo Hills are in the range of 20 to 30%. So that is more of a concern. And then as we move towards the east, we see that some kind of improvement is there, and the best performing districts are in this current year are East Khasi Hills and West Chaitya Hills, and followed by others. So this is the kind of spatial variation which we are seeing. This will be more clear when we see it for the last 5 years. And here you can see that more or less Garo Hills region has remained the same and below 40%. And in the year 21-22, there's a very peculiar case that East Chaitya Hills was doing good, and then this year it has come down, and so have a few other districts in the state. So this is basically to understand the region-wise parities in the distribution of pass percentage. And based on this and based on several other factors, we have developed analysis tools, and we have developed presentation formats where we are reviewing the district based on these very parameters, and we will probably come up with reasons and specific root cause analysis for the districts, because every region or district may have some different reasons why things are going the way they are going. So every district has been asked to prepare an action plan to improve this pass percentage based on their analysis, but this gives the overall picture how the state is moving. Now coming to the school management type variation in the pass percentage. So as you can see, and as I've said before, that we have so many categories of schools. We have the purely government schools, which are the Department of Education. We have RMSA, SEMAM, that is now SSA, Samagra Shiksha. Ad hoc schools, which are the schools which are getting the ad hoc grant for teachers, which is like a fixed remuneration. Then we have deficit pattern, where the teachers get basically the basic pay and the DA only. Then we have deficit school, where they get the allowances also other than the pay scale. Then we have unaided, which is the private schools. Then we have within that also we have recognized and unrecognized. and there are some other categories, some special categories. For example, there are MECL schools run by MECL in the district of Ripoi. So, and there are various categories. So now let us see what is the performance of these particular categories within themselves. So if you see the Department of Education, which are the government schools, basically they are mostly between 30 to 40%, as you can see. And if you see the least performing deficit pattern schools, here are the least performing. And the number of these, one of the reasons is also that the number of these deficit pattern schools is very less. So this kind of maybe when we compare it to the other numbers, it is not truly showing the real picture. So this can be one of the reasons. But as you say, performance-wise, these are at the bottom, and including the SSA schools and also the Department of Education. If you see the variation, the standard variations are given here, and the basically average annual growth rate, everywhere we see a decline this year, because overall you have seen that the pass percentage has gone down. So only in this special category of schools it has a little bit improvement is there. But here also, as I said, the number of schools are very less. So this cannot be taken as a something very promising. Overall, you see everywhere there is a decline, but the concern for us is that the Department of Education and the deficit pattern in the SSA are performing even worse than the other category of schools. So this is something which tells us that where we need to focus more, because obviously there's lots to do in each and every category, but we have to see the lowest link, the weakest link, and we have to work there so that the overall performance can get better. So here now we will look into the subject-wise performance of different districts and also different category of schools which are there. So here also, if you see, this is for English, and if you see the average everywhere is between 60 to 70, the pass percentage across the districts. And here also you can see the same pattern that when we see Garo Hinj region is relatively very less as compared to the Khasi Jaintia Hills region. So this is a pattern which is also seen in the overall pass percentage. If you go into the type of schools, here also we can see that the RMSA schools, which are the SSA schools which are there, and somewhat this deficit pattern schools, the performance is relatively less. Here are the state average which is there. So English, as you can see, the 60 to 70 in any way is less. When you compare to the other state boards and also to the CBSE, generally the pass percentage in the languages are very high. So, and in another way also, the English is very important when we talk of professional degrees and when we talk of that transition from school to work. So it is very important that the English proficiency is improved upon. And the first step will be the improving the pass percentage in English. And here, as we can see, the Garo Hills region and also the SSA schools and the deficit pattern schools need more attention when it comes to English. One disclaimer which I want to share here is that when we are discussing the subject-wise performance, the figures which are there, they are for affiliated schools as were provided by MBOSE. And this pattern may be slightly different when we see the overall picture. So all this, when we discuss the English, science and other subjects, they are basically for the affiliated schools. So now moving on to the other subject, which is science. And here also the overall, if you see the pass percentage of for the state, that is somewhere between 60 to 70. And we see the same kind of pattern when we see the Garo Hills region is slightly less as compared to the other areas. When we move to the school management category, again the same kind of pattern is seen, where the deficit pattern and the RMSA, which are the SSA schools, are performing badly. The science and technology, basically one of the observations of various studies which have been conducted is that now the focus has to be on STEM, which is the science, technology and engineering and mathematics. So that STEM we need to focus on, because this STEM is basically the foundation for overall learning when it comes to higher education as well. So it's very important that we focus again. So this gives us a picture that where these subjects are performing badly in which types of schools. So in the years to come, when we strategize and when we do some interventions, we can focus on these category of schools, because under Samagra Shiksha and under various other initiatives, there are new projects coming up to improve the STEM performance. And now with this analysis, we can see that which schools are there where these kind of interventions will be more relevant and which will help us to improve the performance in the coming board exams. Now coming to mathematics, perhaps this is the lowest when it comes. If you see the state performance, this is somewhere between 40 to 60, I mean in the range of 50s. And the same spatial variation can be seen as compared when we compare the Garo Hills and the Khasi Hills region. And as for schools as well, again, the SSA schools and the deficit pattern schools are a little bit lower. But the major concern is the overall, the pass percentage in mathematics is very less. And that, in fact, is one of the reasons when we see the pass percentage in maths and science, that is what is pulling the overall pass percentage also down. So these are the subjects which are very important when it comes to the foundation for those who especially wants to move into the science stream after their SSLC, and those who wants to pursue engineering and technical jobs. So this is a very important foundation for them, and this will give us a understanding of where we have to intervene, because a major percentage and proportion of the students who are going into maths and science streams later on, they are having bad results there because of a weak foundation. So we have to ensure that we go further deep into this, and even more micro analysis has to be done of how we can improve these foundations of maths and science when it comes to SSLC performance. Now coming to social science, it's relatively better, and it's somewhere between 65 to 80% if you see the state overall. And even the Garo Hills region performs a little better as compared to the other subjects from that region itself. Even though when we compare to Khasi region, it's still less, but still it's better than the other subjects. So social science, we see some kind of jump also in the recent years, but overall also it's again somewhere near 80%, but that should not be somewhere where we stop. I mean, our aim should be 100% pass percentage in all categories and all subjects, especially when it comes to SSLC, because as compared to HSSLC, we are doing very badly in SSLC, and which is supposed to be a foundation. So which is more important, I feel, for the laying down the foundation of the higher education. So that is why we need to work on. But as we have seen that our problem areas lies in maths and science, so this also we need improvement. Unless we reach 100% everywhere, there's scope for improvement. But when it comes to SSLC, the focus has to be on maths, on science. If we improve there, overall the jump will be very high. So right now, when we are still moving between 50 to 60%, what we planned from the Department of Education side is every year we want to see at least 5 to 10% increase. And in the next 5 years, we would want to see that if most of the schools, they reach that 95 to 100% when it comes to SSLC. Okay, so now we move on to the HSSLC and the last 5 years. And before that, we see the school profile. So here also we see that East Khasi Hills has the highest 143 schools. And then after that, we have again West Garo Hills with 66. And then there are other districts. A total of 394 schools are there. Here I want to share that when we talk of dropout, we have a very high dropout when it comes to SSLC and HSSLC levels, secondary and higher secondary levels. And the reason is that the number of schools are relatively less than what we have in upper primary and primary. So this is something which we are working on, and this year also several schools under Samagra have been upgraded from secondary to higher secondary, from upper primary to secondary. So this is something which we want more aggressive steps, and we will be taking more aggressive steps because we need more number of schools. We have recently done a survey where we have asked why people are dropping out. So one of the reasons is that, the schools are far, and then, the financial constraints are there. So if we have more schools at the cluster level, of course, it is not very much feasible to have this kind of higher secondary schools in all the clusters. But, selectively, if we can have more, and then perhaps this dropout can be addressed. So now coming back to this, so this is the variation of the districts in terms of number of schools which they have, higher secondary. And then here again, although the affiliated percentage is much better, 69%, here again we have 122 schools which are unaffiliated. Now here it is even more relevant to get proper affiliation, because now we are talking about higher secondary. Now we are talking about science stream schools, which we have labs, and we have physics lab, bio lab, chemistry lab. And then these labs have to be of particular standards. Standards have to be maintained, because these are also the centers for the board practicals, etc., etc. And they are basically the foundation of technical knowledge, where students go on to receive some degree in professional and technical skills. So this is even more important here. And this percentage, although it's better than SSLC, but we want to eliminate this also. So all these unaffiliated schools, I encourage them to take up the process, whatever paperwork is remaining. You approach the office of Diesel and also the office of MBOSE, and next year let's reduce this number to a very small number. So when we, again, here also we have different kinds of school categories. And if you see, the maximum is again 140 number, which is from the private schools, which are the unaided schools. And after that, we have the ad hoc schools, which are 89 in number and which forms 23%. And then small categories, a total of 394 schools. Now coming to the arts stream. Now, if you see the district-wise variation, of course, overall we have 80% pass percentage overall, which is not bad. But as I said, the target for pass percentage, it should be 100, because this is the first step, pass percentage. Once we get 100% pass percentage, then there are various things like learning outcomes, like, what are the skills they are getting? Are they getting the competencies to get the jobs in the market? So all these things will come only after we have worked on a pass percentage. So this is basically not bad, but still, why not 100%? So this is the overall in arts. If you see the district-wise variation, you will see different kind of categories. Here also, the Garo Hills region is less as compared to the Khasi Chaitya Hills region. I want to make a special mention of Eastern West Khasi Hills. Our new district has performed very well with 94%. And you can see the trends. The concerns here, maybe East Chaitya Hills, there is a small decline. North Garo Hills also, there is a decline. And Eastern West, which is 94%, is after a decline. So these are the thing. Overall, we are improving. Things are good. But when we also see the category-wise, the management category-wise, we see that the government-aided schools and also ad hoc and also the government Department of Education schools are relatively performing less as compared to the other category of schools, although the trend is on an improving side, but still there is a lot of scope for improvement. Now coming to the science stream, now here we see that the overall which is there for our whole state for the year is 78.9%, which is again not bad, but we need to improve. And when it comes to the districts, we see that there is again a lot of variation. And I think this Southwest Garo Hills has performed better and has the highest average pass percentage when it comes to the science stream. Now here also the districts which are on the decline, we make a note that we have East Garo Hills, East Chaitya Hills, we have Southwest Khasi Hills, and we have West Chaitya, and West Khasi has shown some kind of decline. But here, the point to be noted is that there is a decline of 6.49% in East Chaitya Hills. And if you remember the previous slides, we saw that East Chaitya Hills in 20 and 21 performed very well in terms of pass percentage, and now there has been a significant drop. So this in SSLC, so this again pattern is being seen. So we need to look deeper into this and figure out why things are going like this, and because we only need to every time we should see some kind of improvement. So this is what this analysis is all about, and hopefully next year we'll see less red flags here. And when we go to the category-wise performance, more or less we see that similar kind of performance is there. But there is one category as per UTICE, which they are yet to get the full-fledged affiliation, but they are appearing as private candidates. So here you can see that the performance is less, and this again should drive the point that we should have more and more standardization in terms of affiliation, that more and more schools should go for it, and only the new which schools have recently applied, we understand that the process takes time, and there are a lot of paperwork to be done, a lot of inspections to be done. But I'm sure there are many schools which are there for a significant amount of years and they are still not affiliated. So we need to work on this so that we can eliminate this category, and hopefully the performance can be better in these categories as well. Now coming to the commerce stream, here we see that the overall state performance is basically 79 or 80, almost 80%. And when we see the district, we see that the West Khasi Hills has performed exceedingly well in terms of commerce stream. Although there's a decline from the previous years, but a small decline. But when we look at the declining districts, now North Garo Hills, there is a significant decline of 12%, which is huge when it comes to the real numbers. And also Southwest Khasi Hills has a 7.73% decline. So this is something which the districts need to look into deeply, because from the state level, it's very difficult to really do a deep dive into that. And that is the whole rationale of this analysis, that we will be sharing this with the district and let them come out with some kind of strategy and action plan of why, we are seeing significant dips in certain subjects only in certain districts of the state. So here, if you see that the Department of Education schools are performing badly as compared to the other categories, and these difference is significant here, because overall, if we see the pass percentage is 80%, the Department of Education schools are somewhere around 50%. So that is something which we will do further analysis on. And to the viewers also, if you have any feedback, this video will be released on the public platform, and the idea is to get more feedback. So during the whole analysis, if you have points, especially the academicians and the teachers and the principals and even students, how we can work together and how we can improve this, please feel free to leave a comment in this video. And also you can also always write an email to us and reach out to us through various mediums. And everyone has to play a part on this if we have to improve on the state's performance. Now coming to the root cause analysis of the various reasons and factors, what is basically leading to low performance in pass percentage terms in various districts. There can be different kind of factors. The first one is systemic, basically the existing modalities, the existing schemes, the existing way things are happening, the exams, the way teaching is being imparted, all those systemic reasons are there. And let's look into one by one. So one of the basic reasons are that we are having a poor foundation. Now, Government of India now is focusing heavily on foundational literacy and numeracy, which is basically, you must have heard this term FLN everywhere. And even through Samagra Shiksha, our teams are doing so many events to focus and improve this foundational literacy and numeracy, which means that at the early ages, and the early classes, class 1 to 3 especially, they have to focus on this foundational literacy, where the children are basically understanding well the numbers and the alphabets and how to speak, how to read, write. So that is a foundation. When you see any building, you don't see the most important part, which is the foundation. And if the foundation is not set right, whatever you make on top may not last long or may not be of good quality. So basically, foundation is very, very important. And when we say talk of SSLC results, we have to go back to our pre-primary and we have to go back to our LP and UP school to set the right foundation, so that when they transition to the next level, that is the secondary, they can perform better. So this is something which we have to work on. And in fact, already the focus, as I said, is on FLN, and through Samagra and through Diesel, we are putting the focus on the LP school, and hopefully the results will be visible in the next 4-5 years. Now, another point which people point out and say is that the no detention policy, which is basically that the students will have to be passed from one grade to another, irrespective of the performance. Now, here also there is a lot of understanding is required what exactly the act says on this, because it also mentions that if somebody is not able to perform, they have to be given another chance, they have to be given some kind of remedial classes and all, not just simply making them pass irrespective of the performance. So this is something, I think a lot of misinformation is also there on this no detention policy, and we will do a deep dive into this, how it is being implemented and how it's actually supposed to be or intended to be. And maybe in another video we will talk about this no detention rule. But this is definitely one of the things. So here I want to encourage all the teachers, wherever you see that some of the students are not performing well, the idea should be to help them, to do remedial classes, to give them some kind of extra assignments and see that why they are faltering and help them improve, rather than just simply making them pass. So this is something where we have to do our interventions. Now, another reason can be, now as I said, these are systemic reasons, when because of several factors, these things and schemes are not being implemented properly, but we have to look and ensure that. And one of the factors is that the unavailability of the textbooks and textbooks at the right time. There sometimes there are certain delays when it comes to the logistics, the supply chain, and we need to eliminate that as well. And we need to ensure that right at the beginning of the academic year, all these logistics are ensured at the school level so that there is no delay. Now, there are other factors like revision of syllabus, new patterns coming up, and then, new ways of teaching and methodology, edtech, a lot of edtech is coming up, the multimedia teaching, etc., etc. All these things are there. Whether it is being used optimally or not, that is what we have to ensure. And one of the reasons why it is not happening is that a very less portion of teachers are covered through teacher training. If you see the overall, we have 55,000 plus teachers in the state. Now that's a big number. We as a state have a PTR of 19, which seems very good. That means we have good number of teachers. It's just that the spatial distribution is very bad, or some schools are having 4 teachers and 10 students, whereas some schools are having 1 teachers and 90 students. So this is something which can only be solved with rationalization, which again will be coming in the next coming months. We will be talking about it and how this is going to be implemented. But yeah, that is one of the reasons. Now, there is another rule which is there in the boards, is that the best of 5 is taken, from the MBOSE side. But now again, this is open to debate. Like if the best of 5 is taken, then if somebody is not interested, or if somebody is not performing bad, let's say in mathematics, so that kind of attention will not be given to that subject. So that's again open to debate, and that's a thing which is rarely seen in other boards as well. So whether we need to evolve it further or think about it, that only depends. We cannot comment just based on the observation, but we have to do a deep dive into this rule also, which is being implemented. So as you can see, one more the factor which is there is because of low performance in science and maths. And if you see, if you remember the last slides where I talked about as compared to the other subjects like social science and others, the science and math percentages are very low and significantly low. So that is of course one of the reasons, and it tells us that where our focus should be when we are talking about SSLC and when we are talking in fact about UP schools, because that lays the foundation. Then there are other systemic reasons which we also encounter, that the teachers at certain point of time they have to do certain other duties as well. And there are, for example, election duties. Now every now and then we do have elections, although we say that elections are once in 5 years, but then there are different kind of elections. And other than that also, sometimes there are some kind of other census duties and etc. are also there. So we need to review this, and this is in fact a policy level decision, and which has to be taken. But yes, there are other factors, and these also consume a significant amount of time for the teachers, and sometimes they have to go on the field as well. So this is something we from the Department of Education will do a further deep dive, and will look how this burden, additional burden on teachers can be reduced so that they can focus on teaching. Now, another factor is that this comes from the time that in Meghalaya, we have a huge percentage of teachers which are untrained, which are not having the requisite training, and now they are, through various means and processes, they are kind of pursuing it. So that also takes the time away from the school and the teaching, and the focus cannot be on continuous interaction with the students. So this can also be one significant factor. One is that, as we said by discussing, that the number of schools are very less as compared to the elementary level schools. So the distance between these centers is also far. The villages, as you know, the geography of our state, very specially populated, and we have within a village also, sometimes, the households are very far off, and the villages, of course, will not have, all the villages will not have the these secondary and higher secondary schools. So the distance from the school itself is a problem that leads to the dropout, and the examination centers are also very far. So that discourages basically a lot of students from going and appearing with the exam. So one of the reasons which was mentioned in the recently held survey, that why so many people are dropping at this level, secondary level, is that the distance from the school. So this was one of the answers which was given by many students. So we have to work out and get more schools. As I said, under Samagra we are getting more upgradations, so we'll have to continue that, and maybe get some more schools based on the number of students and the population. Now, the current next, one of the more reasons when we talk of systemic factors is that rate of employment. Now, the current rate of employment gives a perception that even if we pursue education, what are the opportunities available? Will we be able to get employment? The number of government jobs are very less. So what is the point of this whole education? So this also, although this is a very indirect and something not very tangible to us, but this also leads to this discourages students to continue education, because they cannot connect the dots forward. They are not really appreciating the importance of education, and how education can empower them, how education can skill them to become independent, to achieve whatever they want to achieve. So this kind of delinking from their vision is also leading to a lot of dropouts. Another reason is that there are certain category of schools which we see that are performing badly in the previous slides. And as you know that at the elementary level, there are large number of SSA schools. If you compare it with other category of schools, it's very minuscule. So we have a huge number of SSA schools when it comes to LP and UP level. So that eventually will impact and determine that how the performance will be in SSLC. Then, since we have a huge number of SSA schools in the state, we will have to look in a micro way on how they are performing and how we can improve the performance of the SSA schools. Now, another one of the last systemic factors which is mentioned here is that, and this is connected to the fact that we have a low performance in science and maths, is the low availability of teachers when it comes to maths and science. For other subjects, we are getting those teachers, and from the last few months which have been there at the Department of Education, we have seen that we are struggling to recruit in this field, in maths and science, because the qualified teachers in this particular field, these subjects are not there. And then, it's very difficult to get them from the locality, from the district, from that particular cluster. So it's very difficult to get those teachers. So that's resulting in a lot of vacancies in these particular subjects, eventually leading to bad results in maths and science. And then eventually the overall result is coming down. So these are basically the systemic reasons why we are having low pass percentage. Now, coming to the individual reasons, that is up to the individual, and it is more of a generic reasons why a particular student is dropping out at this level or a secondary level or a higher secondary level. Now, one of the factors is that the transition which happens with the language. Now, we all know that the new National Education Policy 2020 also talks about the vernacular teaching in the elementary stage. That is very correct, and that is happening in most of the schools. But then the problem which comes up, and which we recently in one of the workshops of NEP, it was pointed out by a few teachers only, that the transition then to secondary is very difficult when everything is being taught in English and all the materials are in English. The content available on the internet is also mostly in English. So that transition, they find it very difficult. And that again is one of the factors which leads to a lot of dropout at this secondary level. So at the same time, we have to ensure that a balance is created, even if the teaching is done in a vernacular language at the elementary stage. We have to ensure that the competency of English and other languages are also taken care simultaneously, so that going forward, and even after this secondary education, when they go for professional education, they will require the English communication skills. In fact, in any kind of recruitment also, that plays a major role. So we have to ensure that the competency of English and also spoken English is taken care of, and that our students are able to, manage that subject pretty well, so that they will not face these kind of problems. Irregular attendance due to various factors is another concern. We are a state with very high rainfall and a very difficult terrain, and sometimes in rainy seasons it's very much not possible to reach out to the school, because it may get disconnected, the route may be washed away or something like that. Because of these factors also, and because of other factors, there is a lot of irregular attendance of these students. So that once again, it creates a lot of gaps. So if you see that in learning, if there is a huge gap, then the student will lose interest. Basically, if there is a significant gap where he has not gone to school, and this we saw in COVID, where for a long time, for almost 2 years, the students were attending online classes, they were not going to school. So there was a significant drop in the interest, and there was a significant drop in the attention span. There's a significant drop in their attitude towards learning, towards going to school. And it was a real challenge when they reached back to school, the learning and everything was impacted. So this lack of interest also comes out through various factors, because they are not able to see, as we talked before, that they are not able to link the relevance of education to how it will empower them, and how it will basically help them achieve what they want. And since we are, in most of the cases, we are not using the latest methodologies of teaching, the EdTech, and also the various multimedias to explain and to make the learning more interesting. So there is a lack of interest. So this also leads to a lot of dropouts. Although some of the schools do have the extra classes where they deal with the weaker students, or they try to give them some kind of remedial classes, which we have seen in some of the schools doing that beyond the school hours, or also during the holidays, which is a very good move. But because of the earlier factors, because of the lack of interest, and because they cannot connect the dots, not a large number of students go there to these extra classes, and the attendance and the participation, which I have observed especially in Garo Hills, has been very low in these extra classes. And even from the district side, sometimes we had organized some extra classes or some kind of remedial classes, but the kind of attendance was very less. So this is also one of the factors. Many of them actually do part-time jobs at this level, because we are talking about secondary and higher secondary. And so here they are taking up some kind of part-time jobs because of some financial issues, etc., etc. So that takes up their time as well. And sometimes this leads to irregular attendance as well in the school. And this basically links to this. And it's eventually when they don't have enough classes, they think that they will not pass anyway, and they don't appear in the exams as well. So this is also, and sometimes they do do part-time jobs because they have to support their family because of financial problems, and there's various issues. As we know that in Meghalaya, very almost all the agrarian basically economies there, and in rural areas, the sons and the daughters, they are part of the whole activity. And then that sometimes takes a lot of time in the those activities, and they could not go to school. So one of the other reason which we also see in certain cases, although it's relatively less here in Meghalaya, but just the cases of early marriage is also there. And when the that happens, basically they have to drop out because they have children to take care of, because they have other household activities, etc., etc. Now we have this basically it says that over holidays. Now there is a very minimal supervision which happens over holidays. Like when the school is closed, especially during the winter break, for almost 2 months, we see that the students are not doing anything relating to their academics. They're totally away from it, and then it becomes very difficult to learn all that again. And then when they regroup in the next academic year, that difference is seen after the holidays, because over the holidays they really do not really go back, and they are not mostly given any kind of work during those holidays. So this we have to make sure that something is being done. As a state, if we see the number of school days, it is very less as compared to the rest of the country. We have significantly less school days, and in fact, if you see, there are particular school hours which are recommended and which are mandated rather by the RTE Act, but that is in most cases we are not able to reach out to those school hours. So something has to be done on that we ensure that significant schooling hours are there, because we already have a lot of school holidays. And as I said, in Meghalaya, because of the rains, because of the other conditions as well, there are a lot of days where this regular school is not possible, sometimes due to floods and etc., other reasons as well. So effectively the number of school days is very less, and over holidays they are not really into the academics. So overall, if you see the very less portion of the year, they are really into the academics. So this will eventually lead to the dropout and poor performance. Now, as there are high number of dropouts, see, when we see at secondary and higher secondary level, it's like almost 30 to 40%, even somewhere 50% in some of the areas of the state, and which is a huge figure. And now these dropouts are basically because of some family activities or part-time jobs. They are joining some kind of ventures, and then this is also influencing others, because their peers are not in school. They have started to earn also, and lead a different kind of life, which becomes attraction or a distraction rather to the other students who are there in school. And they say, okay, if he can get a job, I can also start working. What is the point of continuing education? So that also getting affected, influenced by the dropouts is also happening. What we have seen in the exams, in the SSLC, HSSLC exams, is that the essay type questions, where you have to write more and to put in more effort, that we see many students leave it blank. And then this is a common trend across the state. This also points out to the fact that the descriptive capacities, the capacity to conceptualize and the conceptual understanding of topics is really not there, because they are okay with small time, direct factual questions. But then globally and nationally, the trends of the exams are changing. We are moving towards more conceptual understanding, which is really a good thing, that we are moving away from rote learning, from facts, just asking facts. I remember in our times, and when we used to give these entrance exam, there was a lot of factual questions. But now if you see the entrance exam, is totally different kind of pattern is being seen, where the focus is on analysis and conceptual clarity, not on what you can remember out of your memory. So which is a very good thing. But now our students, since they are facing problems in essay questions, we have to ensure that some special directions is issued to the way the teaching methodology is being done, because we need to address this issue. Because eventually it's not just about pass percentage in SSLC, SSLC, but then they will have to face the national entrance exams, which are basically done by all the other states. So they eventually our students have to compete with with everyone else. So we have to improve upon this, so that our students also have that kind of descriptive and conceptual clarity of topics. These things, I think they are self-explanatory, so I will not go into much detail. One more point I want to mention is that, they continue unsupervised in the sense that if you see the schooling pattern, many of the students, there is a first generation of learners which are going into school, and their fathers and their parents and their guardians probably never went to school or only went till LP school. So this basically at the home they are left unsupervised. So this is also another reason that once they go out of school, the schools we have teachers, they are putting them into some kind of activities, etc., etc. But majority of the time, and as I said, we have very less school days. So most of the time they are at home. And when they are at home, they are being, not supervised on the proper learning procedures and what has to be done on the academic side by the guardians or the parents. And this is a generic trend which is being seen because since we have a lot of rural areas also, and the parents are involved in the agrarian activities, so perhaps they also don't have the time to do it. So most of the time they are unsupervised. So this also can be one of the reasons. So this we see is that these are the individual level reasons why we are having a drop or basically low pass percentage in the state. Now coming to the external reasons, there are various external factors. So wherever a student resides, there is a particular kind of locality, there are particular factors which are beyond the school, which are beyond his own family, which also can affect the performance, his interest and his involvement in academics. So these are already listed, and some of them I've already gone through that, there are some poor agrarian backgrounds. So most of the rural Meghalaya, most of the Meghalaya is rural, which like 85% of the Meghalaya is rural, which is a significant number. And in these schools, we see that the per capita income of the household is also very less, and they engage in some kind of subsistence farming, etc., etc. But so for higher education, generally for when it comes to secondary and higher secondary, when we say that less number of schools are available, then they are not able to send their schools to students to the children to the schools which are far off, and where some kind of the private schools are there, but not affordable by majority of the sections of the rural Meghalaya. So this is one of the reasons, and why since they only depend on some kind of agrarian income, there are financial constraints. This factor I've already talked about, that most of the students which are going, they're first generation learners, so the illiterate parents which are there, they are not able to also create that kind of atmosphere at home also, so that there's a lack of supervision at when they are at home. Now distance is another factor that is particularly coming to the secondary and higher secondary schools, that they are very far off and we don't have those numbers. When we come to LP schools and UP schools, you must have seen that almost in every village we are seeing a LP school which is there. That is why when it comes to elementary, our gross enrollment ratio and net enrollment ratio are extremely good. In fact, our gross enrollment ratio is somewhere around 150 to 160%. That means almost all the children of that age group are in school. But when we transition to secondary and higher secondary, that is not the case because of the distance, because of all these factors which are there. Now, another factor, the external factor, is that there are some kind of medium schools, language medium schools are also there, where the studies are being done in that particular language and the instructions are in that particular language. But when the transition happens to secondary, they face issues, especially we saw that the English pass percentage is very low as compared to other states across this thing. So this can be one of the reasons. In some of these schools, we do have the factor of limited classrooms. Now, generally, if you see our UP schools or our secondary schools, there will be less number of, sometimes the enrollment is quite high. That is what we talk of in various different schools. The situations are very different. In somewhere you will see very high enrollment, and then in that the number of classes will be the same. So in the same class we have more than 60, 70, 80 students also. So that also is not very good, and it is not suggestive. A good basically PTR is 32. When it comes to secondary, as per the Act, generally it suggests 35. And we need to, that is why we need to work on rationalization of schools, where every school can have the decent PTR, and every school can have, as per their availability of classrooms, the number of enrollment. So that is something which is also a systemic problem rather than being external problem, and which has to be worked out from the department side. Now these are some other factors which are there, which we have already talked about, so I am not going into detail. These can be very overlapping factors when we talk of external, internal, individual and systemic. But the idea is that the students are being involved in other activities because they are compelled to do so because of certain, economic, financial and other reasons. And this basically pulls them away from the academics, and they do not give that much time to academics to the level they should be giving at this secondary and higher secondary level. So next set of factors are basically the internal factors, which play also a role in the dropouts and the bad pass percentage, which is there. Now, if you see the few of the points here, one of the points is lack of responsibility, which is set. Now, if anything has to be achieved, we have to set some certain targets, and we have to give certain targets to the people who are there on the field. And when it comes to education, teachers are the basically backbone of everything. And in order to improve, we need to set some targets. Right now, we have been talking about low pass percentage, poor performance, but we have really, in the last so many years, we have not set targets to be achieved. So this is something we want to change immediately. And sometime soon we'll be coming up with the targets which every school and every rather district should achieve when it comes to pass percentage, and not just pass percentage but learning outcomes and other things as well. So that will set some kind of responsibility on the teachers that, okay, so this year I have to move from 65% to 70%. Next year I have to move to 80%. Next year 90%. And that should be the basic minimum acceptable standards which should be there. So this is something which is missing right now, and we have to work upon it. Another very interesting point here is that, the balancing the pass percentage and dropout. So now we are at a stage where we are having very less pass percentage, and the kind of learning standards and the learning outcomes are not being achieved. Now we have to improve. Now to improve, certain kind of effort is required. And when certain kind of push is given, that may drive students to drop out from the school system because they are not used to it. So we have to ensure the right balance here when we, push forward. That has to be the right balance. We cannot suddenly, that is why we are saying that gradient, the targets will be given. We are not expecting that next year we will achieve 100%. Let's move, one step at a time, 5% at a time, 10% at a time. So when it comes to, pushing and nudging students to improve, that also has to be a nudge. That cannot be like a big push. If you do a big push, then they may get out of the school system. So the right balance has to be maintained by the teachers, by the, principals, by the education officials which are there. So we have to be very careful that we don't push them, too harshly so that they get out of the education system itself. So the right balance has to be maintained. Another internal factor is that re-enrollment of drop students. Now we have a high dropout rate, as I said, 30 to 40%. And under various schemes, we are trying to mainstream those dropouts, like especially under Samagra. A whole team is working on this to get this out of school children mainstream. So a lot of interventions are being done with the help of, various teams going, mobile teams going and arranging and identifying these students and getting them to enroll rather in this kind of open schooling also, but also in regular schools after giving them some remedial classes, after giving them some there are some special training centers which are set up under Samagra to deal with these dropouts and to improve them so that they can be mainstream. So when they get mainstream, they are coming after a long time, after a long gap. So the fundamentals have perhaps gone. So, it's very difficult to restart and re-establish those fundamentals. So that is also a challenge where we see a lot of these dropped students who come back to the system again. And if not trained properly, if not oriented properly, then the result will not be good from their end. So that also we need a special approach to deal with all these things. Teacher trainings are very, very important. As I said, that different kind of approach is required for different set of students. Now that we are trying to improve, we said that we want to improve our pass percentage. So certain kind of push has to be given. But, what are the new ways of doing that? What are the right ways of doing that without, pushing them to become dropouts? So for that, we have to ensure that our teachers are trained. Yes, we have a lot of online repository of teaching, which the Government of India, Ministry of Education has there. But we need to, also ensure that physical trainings are there. They are given the necessary TLMs, they are given the necessary the infrastructure, logistics, so that the right combination of teacher training can be achieved. These are another, there are some in other internal factors that, of course, with every year we are having retirements, and people are shifting from one job to another. So there are a lot of vacancies. And because of a lot of systemic, again, going back, all these kind of issues are related, like linking it to the systemic issues. It's linked basically when we talk of retirement. So every year we are having 200, 300 roughly, teachers retiring. So those vacancies have been created. Because of some systemic issues, regular recruitment has not been done for the last several years, and which is slowly being resolved. So these issues are also linked. And then at the end, I also want to talk about something about this remedial classes, which are rarely being done. So now we also have this current practice of selection tests where, we are filtering students. But, let me talk and share a practice being done in other states, is that they go with something called pre-boards, where it is not that if somebody performs badly in pre-board, they will not be allowed to appear in the board exam. That is not the case. They are only given some remedial classes. If you don't perform good in pre-board, that is basically like a pre-assessment, and they will assess in which subjects you want more help, and then accordingly the help is given, and then everyone is allowed to appear in the board exam. Here also I want to mention the idea of selection test is kind of filtering our pass percentage. So the real picture may be even worse than what we are seeing right now. So that is why we need to adopt this new model, which we will talk about more in the next video. But this kind of remedial classes should be there. In fact, even without selection of pre-board, formative assessment, that means, monthly some kind of assessment school should do and identify what are the shortcomings, what are the areas where our students require some kind of help, and they should regularly do it at a monthly basis. Then only they will perform well in the board exam. So this is something which has to be taken very, very seriously. Now coming to the way forward, basically we have talked about the trends, we have seen the spatial variations, we have seen the factors, we have seen the root cause analysis of all those low performing districts and low performing areas. Now what is the way forward? Now, for me personally, I feel the foundation is the most important thing. And if we set the right foundation, once the student learn how to learn, they can achieve anything. Now, this phrase I have picked up from the National Education Policy, learn to learn. So that only happens with a good foundation. So as I talked about FLN, which is the foundational literacy and numeracy, which is in the early years, in the pre-primary and the, the foundation stage. The NEP now talks about a new structure where the initial 5 years are the foundational, they're the foundation, including the pre-primary and the class 1 and class 2 and the, the Vidya Pravesh they talk about. So that sets the right foundation. So if we ensure this for all our children, then I'm sure that we will have much, so if we do it now, let's say in the next 5 years, we improve our FLN. So these children will, after, 10 years, they will reach the secondary stage. So when that happens, definitely we'll have a improved this thing, and we will definitely see close to 95 to 100% because we have set the right foundation for them in all these subjects. Now, after you set the right foundation, it is important that you do formative assessments, that regularly they are being assessed, not like once in a year or twice a year, but regularly the assessments are being made by the teachers. It is at their own level. It need not be a pre-board, it need not be a standard test organized by MBOSE, need not be NAS. It has to be at the school level, formative assessments, monthly basis, they are being assessed, and wherever their, shortcomings are, that is addressed right from the beginning, so that when they reach this class 10, class 12, they are well equipped already. Now, to ensure that, we also have to do regular classes. As I said, in Meghalaya, it's a peculiar case where a lot of factors, come into this. Already we have too many holidays, of course, including the Saturday, Sunday, and the other national holidays and the state holidays. There are too many holidays. And then on top of that, we have a long season where there are monsoons, rains are there, and then in some areas there are floods and other internal factors are there, which ensure that regular classes are not being held. So that is something we need to change. The number of school days or the school hours, this has to go up if we have to achieve anything. So that is very important. So after you do formative assessments, it is very important to take remedial classes. As I said, if we are to introduce this system of pre-board, so after pre-board and board, there will be between them, there will be a gap. And in that gap, you should take remedial classes. The school should take remedial classes addressing the, students where they lack. So to do all these things, our teacher also have to be in sync with what all we have talked about. So regular training is very, very important. Generally, we see that once the teachers are there on the job, there are very few occasions they are called for training. But as we talk about continuous development of teachers is very, very important. Teachers' professional development is very, very important. So every year, they should go to some kind of training, because the way things are evolving, the way the methodologies are evolving, the way the technology is evolving, the teachers also need to adopt that and use all these new things in the way they teach to the students. So and as we said, we have a big challenge. We have 55,000 plus teachers in the state. So that brings a challenge to us. Yes, it's a systemic challenge, that how do you train so many teachers? Yes, online training option is one. So we have, a big number here, 55,000 teachers plus are there in different categories, and how to train them. Yes, one way is to train them online, but regular offline and offline mode teacher training also need to be organized at the district and even at the block level. So this is something which we have to come up from our side. And the coming years, we will try to increase that. We have already talked about, less number of school days and how we need to increase the school days. Regular reviews. Now, whatever gets measured gets done. So this is a very, famous phrase from public administration. And now that we have started the system of regular reviews of districts, in fact, we have created standard templates for districts to come up with based on our priorities. And regular on a monthly level, we have requested the deputy commissioners, we have requested the SDSEOs and the DSEOs to regularly review at their level. And from the state side also, whatever, frequently we can do, we will do. And so this basically regular reviews would mean that all the factors are being taken care of, and we, start taking those steps towards improving education in Meghalaya. Now, two more factors I want to talk about is that we have seen that our performance in maths and science is very less and very low, and that is bringing down the performance of the overall state in terms of pass percentage. So as I talked about this, that we need to improve the STEM capabilities. Now there are many organizations which are working in this STEM, and then they are collaborating with the Department of Education, and under Samakra also there is a lot of focus on STEM. So hopefully in the coming years, with the introduction of more science lab, more adult tinkering labs, more AI and coding labs, etc., the interest in science and the performance in science, math, technology, engineering will definitely increase in our secondary and higher secondary schools. And lastly, to measure all these things, basically we need to have a learning management system. Whether the students are learning these factors or not, whether these things are happening or not, every teacher should be able to see it on their app. Every educator, every official of education department should be able to see this on their dashboard. So that is only possible by having a LMS. I'm happy to share that Meghalaya will soon be having a Vidya Samiksha Kendra VSK, which will integrate all these things. Data will come from UDICE, data will come from LMS and all those things. And hopefully we will be having a nice monitoring system for education in the times to come. So this is basically the gist of everything of the MBOSE results and the analysis and the spatial variations and the factors, etc., etc. And there are a lot of factors in education which are mystified. And through these series of videos, we want to demystify education. We want to make it simple. We want to take your feedback. We want to take your comments as well. So please feel free to comment in this video what you think are the reasons why we have such a low pass percentage and how we can improve it. And we look forward to create more such analysis so that it will help our teachers, it will help our headmasters, principals, DSEOs, SDSEOs, DCs to take some steps to improve the pass percentage, and hopefully we move towards improving education in Meghalaya. Thank you.